Let's talk about all the different threads here, pull some of these together. Firstly, what is your call here then? Do you think, I mean, the Conservatives, it looks as if they're going to be the biggest party, and we're going to see perhaps some need for, but without a majority, perhaps, although that still hangs in the air as we sit here at this moment. We've got 302 for the Conservatives, 625 seats declared out of 650. Where does this go? Is this Conservatives with the DUP? Is that a coalition? Is that a confidence and supply arrangement? What does that look like?
I think over the last few years it's become really natural to assume that if the Conservatives ever got into trouble, ever got into a situation like this, the DUP would be their natural partner. A lot of noises coming out overnight that maybe that's not as natural as you might have thought. So I think we'd probably look at a confidence and supply arrangement relatively short term. I think there's a pretty high chance of a new election in the second half of this year.
A high chance of a new election, a new general election in the second half of this year, with the Conservative Party under a new leader. Would that be the rationale for that?
I think
with a softer Brexit stance.
I'm not sure about the Brexit stance just yet, but I think it's quite clear that Theresa May, having identified the campaign so strongly with herself, has not delivered the result that she was aiming for. And I think you saw from the tone and even some of the wording of her victory speech in Maidenhead earlier this morning that she didn't identify the process going forward with herself quite so much. So it does suggest to me that I think the Conservatives are going to go for a new leader.
I've heard a long list of explanations as to what went wrong for May during this campaign. Was it that the young people turned out for Corbyn, the urbanites turned out for Corbyn? Was it that she lost it with social care? Was it that the polls were wrong in the first place? What's your explanation for what went wrong here?
I think it's a perfect storm of all of those. I think it's the youth turnout, the urban-rural split. I think a big factor was the after the social care problem, then May didn't appear at debates. She didn't look as if she engaged with the process anymore, and it did seem as if there was an extent to which the Conservatives didn't have a plan B and were just happy to stick to plan A, whatever that was.
If you're looking for stability, if stability were your only goal out of any election,
then you'd be upset this morning.
You'd be upset this morning. Would you maybe look to what happened in Scotland and maybe there's no independence referendum on the cards, or is that too early to conclude that?
I think it's too early to conclude because we don't know what this is going to do to the Brexit process yet, and I think obviously the SNP is going to be a big player in any discussions around that. And
why do you think, on the Brexit subject, why do you think you can't say that this leads to something softer? You don't think one of the conclusions of this morning is that what was being pitched, the hardness of the Brexit was being pitched, wasn't as successful as it should have been? You think it's too early to make that conclusion?
I think it is. I think it's conceivable that somebody from the harder side of the Conservative Party could come out if they do go for a new leader and could say, this is the strategy that we're committed to and we should take it forward.
Boris?
Very possibly. I think he's already been making noises even before the votes were counted about some disappointing performances. So I imagine his slightly unruly hat will be in the ring.
Boris Johnson in the ring. Other names, I mean, Amber Rudd, she just held on to her own seat.
Just about hung on.
Is she still in the mix? Who else should we be looking at these days?
I think obviously the three wise men, as people call them, Boris Johnson, David Davis, Liam Fox. I'd expect a run from at least two of those, and maybe a third to endorse one of the others, or perhaps somebody else entirely. So I think Amber Rudd's clearly in with a chance of putting her hat in the ring as well. So, any number of names. Any number of names
on that particular front then. We mentioned the Brexit conversation. In terms of timing, this really throws things up in the air. We were supposed to start dialogue between the EU 27 and the UK within less than 2 weeks, weren't we?
Absolutely,
and now we don't know for sure which party will lead that. Perhaps it looks like the Conservatives right now, but we don't know, and we certainly don't know who will be the figurehead of those conversations.
No, we don't. And while I think it's going to be very difficult for anybody other than May to be Prime Minister by that point, I think it's likely that at the moment it looks like all she might do is go and agree an adjournment with the representatives of the EU, who I think would be more than happy to offer one at the moment.